Welcome to the Stranger Conversations podcast, where we explore the lives and lessons of those around us, hidden in plain sight. I'm your host, Tay Jones. Hello and welcome to episode 14 of the Stranger Conversations podcast. In today's episode, I talk with Bret Johnson, or as you may know him on Instagram, Bret Flat Earth Bible Jesus. If you're wondering what today's conversation is all about, I think his username says it all. In our conversation, Bret and I talk about flat earth and the biblical principles behind the model, among other things. As I like to say, always keep your mind open to the possibility that you are wrong. So if you're ready to open your mind to new possibilities and question your long-held beliefs, buckle in for this fascinatingly curious discussion. Before we dive into my conversation with Bret, I first want to shout out today's sponsor, Hammer Defense. Hammer Defense makes the world's first go-anywhere self-defense phone case. If you're out there traveling the world, flat or otherwise, make sure you've got the tools to protect yourself in the palm of your hands. To learn more, visit hammerdefenseproducts.com, linked here in the show notes, and use code TAYAZ12, that's TAYAZ12 at checkout, and get 10% off and free shipping. If you want to learn more about the Stranger Conversations podcast or are interested in being the next guest on the show, visit strangerconversationspodcast.com. Check out this episode's show notes for additional information on Bret, this podcast, and our sponsors. All right, it's time to get on with my conversation with Bret Johnson. Enjoy. Bret, thank you so much for joining me today on the Stranger Conversations podcast. I am very excited to finally meet you. We were just talking a little bit before we really got going here about, kind of how I came across you. And honestly, I am a little shocked, as I said, that I haven't come across you before. So your title on Instagram, and you have about 70,000 followers right now, which is very impressive. And your username on Instagram is Bret Flat Earth Bible Jesus. And when you kind of click into your page, the very first things on there are Flat Earth, Holy Bible, and King Jesus Christ. So very fascinated with the whole flat earth topic. I know that isn't something that you kind of stop with. Your page is full of memes about all of the stuff that it's kind of, a lot of people's eyes have been opened up to over the last few years, whether it's 9/11, the new stuff like Charlie Kirk, but also, vaccines, all of that. But kind of on this call, I was really hoping to dive into the whole flat earth topic and, really about how that connects with the Bible, because that is something that obviously I've heard of. I haven't really dove into that much, but except for just seeing the stuff on your page, and it does fascinate me. I am a Christian myself.
Awesome.
And so I am, interested in kind of seeing what it is you have to say and just having a good discussion on it and see, gain some additional resources to go and do some research on my own.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. This is my favorite topic. Those are the three things that I've found throughout my truth journey that never change: flat earth, Bible, and Jesus. Those three things have been the constants in my life that have not changed, and they're rocks.
Yeah.
So, yep.
And before, when I had first reached out to you to say, hey, let's have a discussion, you had just sent me, about an hour-long video that you had made with just you kind of talking about the topic. And, as you, a Christian man, you did mention that you were a former Mormon, and it sounds like maybe you had left the Mormon religion only within a few years ago. And so I was just kind of curious a little bit about your background and, and where you were before compared to where you're at now. So it sounds like Christianity has been in your life for a long time. So I'm assuming you were a Mormon for quite some years.
For the first part of my life. 11 years ago this month, I was working at a Home Depot And this guy told me about this book that I had never heard before. I thought I'd heard every counter argument against Mormons in the book. And he told me about The Late War by Gilbert Hunt. And I was like, well, I've never heard of this book, you know, and I've dug deep into everything that they say. So I had a full shelf, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And after he showed me this book and he challenged me to read it cover to cover, I was like, fine, I'll do it. I did it. By the end of that book, my shelf was cracked, and I knew the Book of Mormon was plagiarized, because that book was written about the War of 1812 in King James Version style English, like the Bible. And you can see all the phrases that Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery copied from it. And so my shelf just cracked.
Really?
Like, because I had read the Book of Mormon so many times, and to see those same phrases from a book written in 1816 that was read in the schools that they, you know, heard and taught, and that it was incorporated into their fictional book, it just crushed me, you know. But it was a process to unplug and like not like just totally throw away the Bible too. Jesus had been preparing me to find this out without crashing, because most ex-Mormons, they throw away the Bible too when they find out Joseph Smith was a false prophet.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an absolute miracle that Jesus had got me on the rock, like Matthew 16 says, that he will build his church on, of a personal witness that he is the Son of God. And many Mormons think they have a testimony of Christ, but it's put to the test when they find this out about Joseph Smith, because they realize that they've wasted their whole lives on a fictional book that they thought was true. And so when I came to that realization, it was I felt all alone. Even my wife wasn't there yet, and I had to wait years for her to get there when she saw Nelson pushing the COVID shots in 2020. And that woke her up, because she was the one that showed me that shots were bad way back when we had our first son back in 2011.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was just amazing that we had been brought together and we had woken up about different things at different times. And I had to be patient, kind of like Adam with Eve, and just remain with her and just wait for her to get it. And thankfully she did. And now we both know that the Mormon Church is a Glober, plagiarized, you know, false prophet, adulterer church. Like, he was marrying men's wives behind their backs after he sent them on missions. And he put the globe in the Book of Mormon, which is the biggest proof against the Book of Mormon. In Helaman 12, 13 to 15, and Alma 30, 44. It plainly says that the earth moves in the Book of Mormon, which contradicts the Bible, where it says in 1 Chronicles 16:30 that the earth is stable, that it shall not be moved. It says it over and over in the Bible, in the Psalms, in Zechariah, that the earth is stable and it's under a firmament dome and it doesn't move. So when you have a claimed prophet giving you scripture that says the earth moves, that's a dead giveaway, 100%, like the book of the law says, to detect false prophets, you know, when it contradicts the word of God.
Yeah.
And so basically over the years, I've been able to come to terms about what I did as a Mormon, and I still gained a testimony of Jesus Christ. And I was able to unplug and not throw away everything, which is a huge thing, because I'm telling you, I have seen so many ex-Mormons that are no longer Christian. They're atheists and they just throw away the Bible. And so I feel like God is calling me to try to help them, I don't know, in some way, to just get them to research flat earth and realize, oh my goodness, there is a God. Jesus is the Christ. The Bible is true because it talks about the flat earth and the firmament dome. And I shouldn't throw away the Bible, right?
Yeah.
But there's just so many that have fallen, and my heart just breaks for them, because I get it. I've been there. I know the devastation of finding this out, that the church isn't true, you know, like they always say every first Sunday of the month in their testimony meetings, you know, and it's like brainwashing. I know the church is true. I know the prophet is the, you know, it's just constant brainwashing, like MK Ultra in a religious way. It's just, it's just crazy how I couldn't see it through all the years because I wanted to make my parents happy, And anyway, I'm just
Yeah.
so grateful though that Jesus basically prepared me on this path where I am now online, and he has totally like guided me for the past decade, over a decade, since I saw this sign in the earth of Jesus's face in the United States flipped upside down. Ever since then, he's been guiding me. And because I shared that sign one day, it led me to a friend online in Facebook who actually helped me become a flat earther. And he was still a Mormon, but I already knew that the Mormon church wasn't true for like 3 years, since 2014. And when I became a flat earther in 2017, it was because I had shared that sign and he thought that was interesting. And then we became friends, and then he helped me become a flat earther later on in 2017. So I can see God's hand in my life. And I even wrote a book of Jesna, which is scriptural fiction, to help Mormons get unplugged and to just read it and realize they're on a flat earth and under a firmament dome, and that we are ruled by a secret society which rules over our whole world, like the book of Revelation says about Mystery Babylon and the beast system. Like, it's all in there. And once they read that, I just hope that it points them to the Bible. And so that's basically why I have written that book. And then I've made memes books that have 828 pages, and I made 3. I've just been making memes. I'm trying to wake up the world about everything. Yeah. And basically that sums up just everything that I've been doing the last, 15 years since I saw Building 7 go down. And I didn't realize it in 2011. That's when my red pill started. And ever since then, I've questioned, and it's led me to where I am now.
Yeah. So Building 7, for those who don't know, if you've never heard of this or actually researched it, go on there. Building 7 is the third building that collapsed on 9/11, and it's the building that they were discussing about it having collapsed about 27 minutes prior to it actually falling down live on TV. Very interesting. I believe it housed a lot of records that contained a lot of the waste and abuse for the trillions of dollars that were missing. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. A lot of it's just coming from memory, but I will say that if somebody listening has not just done a cursory research of Building 7, they should just go look, because I probably in 5 minutes you'll go, what? How do I not know this?
Yeah, it's complete demo. Like, they controlled demo that building. It's so obvious. Yeah. Nothing hid it. And the BBC lady was telling that it was down, and it was still right there behind her.
Yep. So there was a lot there in the opening to this show, but first, before I forget, I want to ask, and forgive me, because I don't know a lot about the Mormon religion, to be honest. But you said that the Late War by Gilbert Hunt. You said it was written in 1816. When was the Mormon Bible written?
It was written by Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery in 1829.
Okay, so
and it was released in 1830 by the spring.
Okay, so definitely within the kind of that time frame to where the late war could have had, some sort of profound, I don't even know, some sort of a push on the folks that maybe have written that, Joseph Smith, etc. So I do want to go, because this is all very fascinating to me. So the fact that you're using flat Earth as kind of evidence against the Mormon religion, but also bringing that in to, like you said, the Earth is stationary, firmament dome. But I do want to say, so you saw a sign. You said, what was it? The face of Jesus on the earth, and it flipped upside down.
Yes.
Like, where were you? Just explain a little bit about what that sign was, and then I'm hoping to kind of get an idea of what does the Bible say about the earth. What is the firmament? I'm very curious on that, because this is not something you would typically learn at church, right? This is something you might have to hear in a somewhere off grid, say, and then go and do some research and see for yourself on what it is. So what exactly was the sign that you saw that is now helping you kind of free Mormons from the Mormon religion, based on a flat earth principle, on how, to kind of prove that the Book of Mormon is incorrect?
Yeah. So I was in the Navy in South Carolina. I had just finished a graveyard shift. It was August 12th, 2012. I'll never forget the day. And I just felt to go look at satellite imagery for fun. And I was just looking at satellite imagery of the United States, which, by the way, satellites are really all on balloons. That's a proven fact. So I really should call them sadaloons. But back then, I was a Glober, so I didn't know. But anyway, as I was looking at the imagery, I just felt a prompting to flip the United States upside down. And I did that. And then I just started to see things that I feel like God or his son, Jesus, had drawn in the earth when he made the earth. And he left signs in the earth beneath. Kind of a little play on words there with Joel chapter 2. But basically, to me, I feel like he drew a picture of himself in the United States. And there's a big J on his head. And you can see the eyes and the nose. It's all right there in the Rocky Mountains. And then he also drew a Bible, like the pages of the Bible over in actually the Bible Belt. And there's like a horse right next to it. Some people cannot see this, and I get it because it's people will call it pareidolia. And I totally get it because yes, you can see things in things. But to me, this was like Jesus, like letting me know that he made the earth and that he's real, 100%.
Okay, so this isn't something you can just take a picture of the earth and flip upside down. This was something that you saw almost as a vision.
Well, you would have to go try it out for yourself, get out some satellite imagery of the United States, flip it upside down and see if you can see it.
Okay.
If not, and then it's not for you, but it was for me, and so that really affected me. And so I kept it, in the vault, so to speak, for a few years. And then I just felt to share it one day in a Facebook group back in like 2015 after I had seen it for 3 years. And I showed it to somebody and they could see it. And they're like, wow, that's really, really cool. And then we became friends. And then that friend and I were introduced to Flat Earth. And he was very instrumental in causing me to become a flat earther because I fought it for 2 months. I made fun of flat earthers. I laughed at them, all the stuff that flat earthers get, right? But as I basically got the strength to come out after 3 years of being a flat earther, it took me 3 years from 2017 to 2020. And when I did, I realized after doing it for a couple years, I started to get private messages from people that they said, I used to be atheist, and now I'm a believer in Jesus Christ because of your Flat Earth post. Thanks, Bret. I've gotten so many messages like that. And so I can see God's hand working in my life. And I can just, ponder the path of my feet like the proverb says, and I can see where it's led me now online. But I know how the world works. I honestly don't want to get very much more followers than I have because I'm noticing as soon as you get above 100,000, it's like a tick mark that you're on the Illuminati's radar now. And I've seen so many people get turned and they start to preach half truths. They become controlled off and bought and compromised. And it's just I'm basically in the sweet spot is what I like to call it, between 50K and 100K. And so I don't know what I'm going to do when I get above 100, to be honest, because I know how this world works. And the more that you're on their radar, the more that they're going to be contacting you and trying to, get you to do what they want, or they'll take you down or whatever.
Yeah. So the flat Earth, I mean, a lot of people just, because, you're not taught that. You're basically taught to think that it's crazy. So a lot of people, they hear that and they just dismiss it, right? Okay, just outright. But that's crazy. If it was flat, we would know. We would have been told. However, I absolutely love all of this stuff. And one of my kids and I were always debating with, oh, yeah, this is great. And we just like to think outside the box and think about it. Yeah. And so to just kind of open your mind and to say, okay, what if it's real, and diving in, I will say that one of the things that I watched maybe a year ago, and I almost guarantee you've seen this, but it was a video. I can't remember the guy's name. If I heard it, I'd remember it. But it's called The History of Flat Earth, or The History of the Flat Earth. It's like an hour and a half long. And I was fascinated. I was watching it, and
Uh,
for somebody who thinks this is crazy, I would just watch that. I would go to your page, just look at some of the stuff. There is so many things that make no sense for a round globe Earth. You know, and that's one of those things, right? Look at it, see what you think. How can some of these things be explained? Because there are a lot of things that you probably can't just say it's a coincidence. It'd be great to hear some really good explanations on how these things work. Because if you take, again, a cursory look at it, a lot of questions come up. And
oh yeah.
I feel like if this is, I feel like these questions should be easily debunked. And some of the ones that you see, they make zero sense if it is the shape that they say it is, because you can see things miles and miles and miles and miles and miles across flat spans that you shouldn't be able to see based on the geometry of the Earth. I mean, that's just one thing, and they've done experiments with these, so that should just kind of open your mind and say, okay, well, that doesn't make sense. That's against everything that I've been told. So just to keep that open mind. And again, I don't know. I'm not an expert in all of this. But one thing I do know, I will say 100%. And this is ever since, basically January of 2020. And millions of people are in the same boat. If the government tells you something, it's probably not right. It's probably not real. It's probably a lie of some sort.
Yeah.
So once, with everything that you've had to question over the last 5 years, this does not sound that crazy once you start looking at it. And especially if you start diving into a whole nother rabbit hole, the moon landing, right? You're like, okay, wait, this is definitely impossible. There's way more questions than there are answers for a lot of these things. And yeah, so it's just very interesting. And if someone is listening to this and they're just flat out dismissing it and they just want, wow, this is crazy, just go look and see how many questions come up for you and see if you can answer those, and just have that little investigation for yourself and just see what it is. I mean, I don't know the answer. I'm still just curious. I'm a very curious person. I want to look, but that's really why I was hoping to talk with you and just kind of get a good perspective and kind of a biblical perspective, because I've never once heard in church about flat Earth. So that. And so let's see, the firmament dome. What is that? What exactly in the Bible, when it talks about the way that the Earth was created, and it talks about the firmament dome? Explain that to me.
Yeah. So start right in Genesis 1. I mean, if I had to keep anything, only one page of the Bible, it'd just be Genesis 1, because it explains it perfectly. So it started out with just flat water. It says that the Spirit of God was moving upon the face of the waters. And what does water do? It finds its level. It's flat, right? And so literally the very, very, very first verse of the Bible talks about the Spirit of God hovering and moving over the face of the waters, okay? And then he just divides the light from the darkness before he even made the sun, right? And then he makes the firmament dome from the water that is basically under that flat surface that Moses was talking about in verse 2. And it says that he separated the waters above from the waters below, and he made the firmament. And if you do a dig and a deep study on this and what it's really made of, it's actually made of ice, made of oxygen. And oxygen, if you study its freezing point, it is way cold to freeze oxygen. It's way cold. And you'll notice that in science, they give us a false version of the firmament dome. Do you know what they call it in false science?
No.
The ozone layer.
Oh, okay.
And so the firmament dome is the real ozone layer. It's protecting us from the waters above, which God used to flood the earth in the days of Noah. He opened the windows, it says in Genesis 7, and flooded the earth in the days of Noah.
Okay, so
and
now
then he closed them back up.
Yeah, it's just, I want to say something, because again, part of my curious nature, I've never once heard about the firmament being frozen oxygen. I was saying something the other day, again, a conversation with my son, my curiosity. Hey, why does the sun is in space, okay? And it's hot down here, but the higher you go, the colder it gets. You're getting closer to the sun. How is that possible? And I've never once heard that the firmament, the dome of Earth, is supposed to be frozen ice. So, I mean, I'm just correlating that because that's an interesting observation that I came up with and just a question. And now to hear you say that, that's just interesting.
Yep. And you have to understand, you understand how they put the truth in the movies and the lies in the news or from the government, right? Like they put the truth in the movies. Well, The Truman Show is the ultimate flat Earth movie. Okay.
It's a great movie.
Literally. Yeah, it's a great movie. And all of the Globers that have no idea they're on a flat Earth are Truman. They literally have no idea that the stars are just right there above a dome like him. They have no idea that the government has a treaty in place to stop people from going to Antarctica and doing their own private expeditions to reach the firmament dome and touch it, just like Truman does. Mm-hmm. They have no idea that that's exactly the reality that they live in. And they called it the Truman Show because they found the firmament dome under President Truman after World War II. And he was the 33rd president of the United States, which is their number for the 1/3. 0.33 is 1/3. And they're the 1/3 of the demons and the Freemasons that follow them now. And so they basically did that to leave their mark and say, we started this show, back in the 40s. And we don't want anyone to know about it. Only a certain handful of people have seen and touched it with their own hands. It is like the most top secret clearance that you could get ever, because it is the most earth-shattering thing. And you couldn't touch it with your bare hands. You would literally be like touching a frozen pole and with your tongue, and then, having your tongue stuck to it. Like, it is so cold that you have to obviously not just touch it with your bare hands. Yeah. But the point is that they are hiding this, and they've been hiding it forever. There's all these rules, and this treaty has never been broken. And they created NASA to distract from this and have people believe in fake space. And it's just been going on forever and ever. And they've been trying to crack through it, and they've been trying to cut into it, but it just refreshes. Like, you can't fight God. Like, he is so powerful. And Psalms 2 talks about them trying to fight against him, and he's just laughing at them. Like, they can't even comprehend his power. But this synagogue of Satan, of people that rule our world, that basically follow the devil and want to deceive everybody and control everybody, like on that show, they're going to be in for a rude awakening when King Jesus comes back, and he melts the firmament. It says in 2 Peter 3:12, and Jesus melts the heavens and dissolves it. It literally says that. And so it's right there in the Bible that it's made of ice.
So with all the questions and all the things that don't make sense about what science tells us, the real question, though, is why? Like, what would be the purpose of this lie kept for thousands of years?
Yep. The purpose is to hide God, number one, and to hide our full potential as a son and daughter of God, and to basically be able to control them with false science, which the Apostle Paul said to avoid the oppositions of false science in 1 Timothy 6:20. And that is happening across the whole world, especially we saw it in 2020, right? Mm-hmm. But that was just a dry run for the real thing when they released biological warfare and all this bacteria. Viruses are not what we've been told. And so that's another example of false science, that people think they're this contagious thing floating around and get everybody sick. No, Stefan Lanka proved that they never isolated the measles virus for their vaccine, and he took it to court and won. And he's proven over and over that they didn't isolate it, that they've made up this lie. And so he gets to the point, well, what's really in the shots? And when you really study, well, what's in the shots, it's basically genocide. And it's basically meant to poison and dumb down the population, to be autistic and to have all these health problems and be dependent on the system with all their meds and pharmakia, as we call it, from Revelation 18:23. that it says he has deceived all nations by his sorceries. And so Satan is used, and the word for sorceries is pharmakia, or all the drugs, that they push on everybody. And they know the real cures. They know how to do all that, but they don't, because they want people dependent on the system. It's like the Matrix, which would be the next movie, after the Truman Show, that just shows that people are just jacked in and they can't unplug. They can't, because they've been dependent on it for so long. And like Morpheus said, they're just too old. And so I honestly haven't met very many new old flat earthers, but there are some that have that ability to question after 60, 70 years. But for the most part, once they hit 40, 50s, it's really almost impossible to reach these people, because they've just thought this way their whole life, and now they're just ready to die that way.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've never heard pharmakia before. I just looked it up right now while you were talking, and it means sorcery or witchcraft. So here's another question. If the purpose of hiding the flat earth from the public is to hide God from the public, I feel like maybe they're doing a bad job of that. There's billions of Christians across the world who have faith that Jesus exists. They have faith in the Christian religion. So I don't feel like they're hiding God very well. Do you believe, just because there would be a difference if there's a difference between they know God and they have faith in God, they just don't want to?
So you have to understand how they work. They control both sides. Hegelian dialectic. Okay, basically they create order out of chaos, and they know that they can't get everybody to doubt the Bible and to doubt that. And so what they have to do now is infiltrate all the churches, all of the 501c3 tax exempt government controlled churches, so that they can push the things that they want. And I've seen this in the Mormon church, that it is a 501c3 church, which means if they do anything the government doesn't like, they lose their tax exempt status. And one thing I've noticed over the past, 5 years, just observing them, they never talk about the mark of the beast, ever. It's like a forbidden topic. Because if you do teach that, you're basically teaching them to not follow the government when they come out with their, laws, to have to get something in your hand or on your forehead, which we're about to see the beginnings of with the digital ID. We're getting really close, but I wouldn't say this is the full-blown one, because it has to be a one world currency. It has to be, over the whole earth, where there's just one way to buy, one way to sell. And they are forbidden to talk about this thing. And they have to push the shots. And the one that just died recently, Russell M. Nelson, he was a Skull and Bones member, and he admitted it. Just like Bush was, all the other ones, which is another faction of the Illuminati, which is meant to control and depopulate. So what I have found is that since they can't get people to stop believing in God, they're going to slowly put lies in there. And they start with the globe, right? And they start with the shots. And then pretty soon it's going to lead to telling them to just get the mark to save your family, So they don't care if people believe in God, as long as they can still drag them to hell. And that's what they're going to do, because Paul said there's going to be a great falling away in 2 Thessalonians 2. And that is about to happen in the coming years and decades, when the Antichrist comes to power, and they're going to do all sorts of stuff. But it's basically, from my research, it's like the movie Stargate. They're going to release all the UFO technology and claim we got invaded, and people are going to be like, oh my gosh, and they're going to think that the Antichrist is quote unquote God. They're literally going to think that he is. Only the elect won't be deceived, that Jesus said would be elect. And they will see through the lies. And the best way to start seeing through the lies now, and when that happens, is flat earth. So here's another thing that I have noticed too, is they've infiltrated, and they even started the flat earth movement with a bunch of CIA, New Age controlled people. And they didn't point to the Bible. They pointed to New Age. They said all these lies against Jesus. They said a bunch of nonsense. And that's how the Flat Earth movement started in the 2014 and 2015 years. And then after more and more people became flat earthers, we're like, well, wait a minute. What about the Bible? Like, why are you guys going against the Bible? And so biblical flat earthers started right after that. And now they're the ones that are actually being used by God to bring people to Christ, and not to all the nonsense about New Age or simulation or whatever other stuff that contradicts the Bible. And so it's just a mind job. You think you're unplugged, and you have to keep unplugging, because they control everything, like literally every major movement with all the followers, all the money, all the power. They control it. And if they don't control it, they'll take you out. They'll either get you deplatformed or kill you or whatever they have to do. They will, be in control, and they have to be, because the book of Revelation has to be fulfilled. It's basically like the statue in Daniel 2, when the first emperor came to power with, the Babylonian Empire, and Nebuchadnezzar was the emperor. And then after him was the Persians, and then the Greeks, and then the Romans. And then now we're on the feet of the iron and clay with the Antichrist. And he will be the last emperor before the true emperor, Jesus Christ, comes back and takes him out, and takes out all the, everybody that is against him. So we are literally living the fulfillment of Scripture. And this is why I know how the world works, is that you can't get too famous without getting controlled or killed. It's a proven fact. If you've studied how the Illuminati work and how they operate, like, you just can't. You'll eventually get deplatformed or killed if you go against them. Or who knows if they even have cloning technology down in the deep underground military bases, like, we don't understand the technology that they have, right? Mm-hmm. But they've been hoarding it for generations, since Tesla. They have stuff that we can't even fathom. Like, Bill Cooper said that they tested a laser weapon in Vietnam, and it just vaporized somebody instantly, just gone. So they've been testing out this kind of stuff for a long time. And so when they do the fake alien invasion, it's going to freak out a lot of people, because it isn't just going to be a bunch of projections in the sky like they had planned for, Project Bluebeam. Mm-hmm. But they're actually going to use technology, as a combination with those projections, and they are going to kill people because they have to make it seem real,
Yeah.
But it's all just from the deep underground.
Yeah. I mean, and that's everything, pretty much everything that we see as new technology. I mean, the government's had for probably 20 years or more. Yeah. the new aircraft that comes out, it's like, wow, well, they've been flying that for 20 years. You just didn't know about it. So the fact to think that they don't have technology that can do crazy things, or this AI, if we really don't think AI has probably been around for 10, 20 years, and we're just kind of just now getting into it, but I'm sure it's been around for quite some time. Makes you kind of question. I mean, right now you go on Instagram and you can barely tell what's real or fake. How long has that been going on where we didn't know about it?
And that's our future with AI that they want.
Hey, was that you that I heard talking about kind of debunking what people said, maybe, and I can't remember, it might have been somebody else, but I thought it was something that you had said about kind of debunking that some people say that in the New Age world that Jesus has already been here, and Jesus has already come back. And they said, well, they couldn't, because we were supposed to all speak the same language and all of that when they come back. Was that you? Okay.
That was one of my memes. It's basically the little season people. I call them the little season people. They're like Philetus and Hymenaeus that Paul warned about, are saying that the resurrection is past.
Okay. So I got a question though about that. What do you, with AI and with the technology we have today, I mean, we can translate anything. We technically all speak the same language, even though the words coming out of our mouth say different things. We can use technology to all speak the same language right now, right this second. I mean, what would you have to say about that?
Well, you have to understand that the Tower of Babel caused this whole mess of languages to begin with by a guy named Nimrod, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that he made that tower is because he thought that he could get up to the firmament dome. Like, it's just funny how I can bring flat Earth up for anything.
Is that what the tower was for?
Yeah, like they
To get to
literally
heaven,
thought that
right?
they could literally build a tower up to the firmament dome, to heaven, because heaven is another word for the firmament dome in Genesis 1:7 and 8. So
Oh, really?
he thought that he literally thought that he could make the tower up to heaven and fight him. And it's so funny when a global Christian reads that and they think, oh, he's so funny, he's trying to go light years, into the sky with his tower. But when you understand the actual model that Moses and the prophets and Noah believed, then it makes a lot more sense why he even built that tower, right? So my point is that God then confused the languages, right? So everybody would not know what they're speaking, and he did that to disperse them. Now we're at the point, like you just said, where everybody's almost speaking the same language, and that's exactly what's going to happen, is that this latter-day Nimrod, the Antichrist, is going to unite the whole world like Nimrod. And Nimrod built the tower to actually fight God, and they shot arrows into the clouds. And it says in the book of Jasher that the arrows came back bloody. And so they thought, oh, look, we're getting him,
Wow.
And and God did that to deceive them. And then he's going to do the same exact thing with the Antichrist. It says in 2 Thessalonians 2, is that he's going to cause strong delusion on these people that love the Antichrist and love his system, his technology, basically his tower, symbolically of just things that they want to, do against God. And he's going to punish them and deceive them. And so this verse that you're talking about in Zephaniah, that's actually in the millennium when Jesus comes back and everybody speaks the language of heaven. There's no more languages. Jesus restores everything when he comes back. And it's going to be an amazing time to live. I hope I'm worthy and I'm able to live during that time. And I'll probably have to give my head for it, like Revelation 20 verse 4 says. A lot of people are going to be beheaded when they don't get the mark. And I've gone over this in my head many, many times. We are all going to have to lay down our life at some point for Christ. Unless he keeps us safe in the wilderness and we're supposed to make it to the second coming, a lot of us that are elect are not going to make it. And he says that they'll have to give their life, but then it says they'll rest for a little season, right? And then the first resurrection happens at the second coming, and all those elect are resurrected and they reign with Christ for 1,000 years. So that little season is about the length of the tribulation, which we all know is about 1,260 days or 3.5 years. And so when someone says that they're in the little season, it actually contradicts scripture, because they say, oh, Jesus already came back and now we're in the little season. But that little season is actually around, hundreds, if not 1,000 more years after their supposed millennial reign. So it's not biblical. And I'm actually making a meme right now about it. You'll see me post after this. But basically, they're claiming that the first and second resurrection already happened, and that there's going to be a third resurrection. So they're basically adding to the book of Revelation, which it says in the ending of the book of Revelation to not add to this book, right? Or you'll have your name taken out of the book of life.
I need to do more reading. You've thrown out a lot of scripture, and I have not read the entire Bible front to back.
I mean,
I'm working on it.
The whole firmament dome would be gone if Jesus had already come back, and all the stars would not be up there. It literally says that they all fall like figs from a fig tree when he comes back in Isaiah 34:4 and Revelation 6:13. It literally says that all those stars fall down. And so when someone tells me that he's come back, it's just another psyop and I've been doing some digging on it. I haven't even posted on this yet, but it seems to me that the Freemasons are behind this lie too. They're behind everything. And I was studying who was the first person to really push Tartaria and, Little Season stuff. And I found this guy from the late 15, 16, 17 time, and basically he's pushing it.
What is
He's
that?
pushing it.
Tartaria. What is that?
So Tartaria is basically their claim that this is the millennial kingdom of Jesus Christ, is what they're saying. But it isn't. It's just a kingdom that existed in modern day Russia and Eurasia. And yes, there has been technology that has, that they had in the past that was covered up, right? But to suddenly say that, oh, now since we found all this ancient technology, Christ already came back, it's not biblical. It's basically twisting the verses where he said this generation. And I just did a video on this about Luke 17, about how he said, first I have to be rejected of this generation. But then they say that generation is now going to see him come back. Like it's just, they have to look at all the scripture, because the Mount of Olives hasn't been cut in two yet, like Zechariah says. When Jesus actually touches down and comes back, like the angels in Acts chapter 1 says, and he hasn't done that yet, or the Mount of Olives would be split into two, So there's just so many things that haven't happened yet. You already mentioned the languages, and they're all still there. And if Jesus had already come back, there wouldn't be a ton of languages. There would also be no more death if Jesus had already come back. And there's people still dying left and right. In the millennium, when people quote die, they don't die. They just like change in like a twinkling. There's no more death. It's like a fairy tale, but it's exactly what the righteous get to live in the 1,000-year reign.
Yeah. So reading the Bible, checking out these quotes that you've been talking about, very important.
Yeah.
I did hear you say at one point in something that you sent me right before this call, that you said that it's kind of important that you read an older Bible, like a King James version would be the best. So there's a lot of versions of the Bible. Why would an older version be better? Are the new ones missing something?
Basically, they have watered down all the new versions, and they've taken away so much meaning. The King James itself even still has errors. And I'm actually doing my own version of the Bible. I'm in Deuteronomy right now.
No kidding.
I started in... Yes, no kidding. This is like the final work that I feel called to do, besides just making memes and, trying to help ex-Mormons. But basically, I'm making this book, and it's going to be a hybrid of the Septuagint and the Strong's Concordance, so that you can see like what the original Hebrew and Greek was trying to say. And I've noticed that sometimes the Septuagint got it right, sometimes the Strong's or the Masoretic got it right. So it's kind of fascinating to compare them and put them in a hybrid, but it really is really neat to see the comparisons. And I've been learning so much how it just makes the firmament dome so plain in the Septuagint. I love the Septuagint when it comes to the flat earth. Like it just makes it so plain. And it says like the firmament dome is made of sapphire stone slabs. Like it's so plain, like it's a solid structure, and it describes it as a solid structure several times in ways that the King James doesn't, And so this version is going to be the BJV, after the Bret Flat Earth Bible Jesus page, and it's going to just be basically a version for what does each verse really say from the Greek and the Hebrew. And so I'm going to do the same thing when I get to the New Testament, and I might draw upon some other ancient sources, but we have to really go down to what each verse is really saying, because they'll twist words. Like the New Age love to quote this verse in Luke 17:21 about how the kingdom of God is within you. But that word within should not be within. It should be among you. And so this whole within New Age movement, it just from one little verse that got mistranslated, they make a whole doctrine out of it. That's not biblical. And then they become like their own God right now, which is not biblical. Like we do have potential to become like God. It says that in the Bible, to become one with Jesus, the Father, and the Holy Ghost. Like he prayed for that in John 17. But when they say flat out, that they're like a god already, it's basically the spirit of the Antichrist, because he's going to say that he's God, right? Capital G.
Mm-hmm. What is the Septuagint? I've heard that before, but
it's
explain to me
basically
what that is.
Yeah, real quick. It's basically the original Bible from the Hebrew to the Greek that was translated by 70 translators when the Library of Alexandria was in place in Egypt. And all the apostles and Jesus quote from it. Like, God's hand was in that Bible of those 70 men. So I'm basically doing the work of 70 men to just combine it into one from the Masoretic and the Septuagint. And then I'm also doing all this other side research to make sure if I don't quite get what I'm doing, I'll go dig more and make sure so all my readers will get exactly what they were trying to convey. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so that's that's where the Septuagint comes from. Is from the it was like written about 100 BC, and then so basically the apostles and Christ quoted from it, and if you read the New Testament, they quote it all of the time.
Interesting.
All the time. Yeah, so it's very important.
So also, obviously you're a Christian, and that's the stance you take on a lot of why you have faith and believe in the flat Earth model. If there's a lot of things, if it's not just the Bible says so, if there's someone who is an atheist and they want to know, why should I believe that there's a flat Earth? Take the Bible out of it. What's probably the most compelling evidence that you have found for the flat Earth model that could be a universal, wow, I don't know how to explain that, without taking it to the Bible, without anything.
Right. Well, here's how I woke up, okay? I didn't even involve the Bible until after the fact, to be completely honest. Like, I didn't even involve it because I wanted to see with my eyes, what they were saying was the truth. And so the thing that woke me up is, like you said earlier, that you can see things too far when the curvature should be totally covering it up, like Chicago across Lake Michigan. Mm-hmm. That started to make me wake up. There's a world record photo by a guy named Bret, and he stood on some mountains in Spain and took a picture of this mountain in France, and it's supposed to be covered by curvature at that distance. It's like over hundreds of miles, and that's like 30,000 feet of curvature, and it doesn't cover the whole mountain. Yeah. And so the fact that we have pictures like that is what woke me up first. And then secondly, I went to NASA's feeds and I started to watch them. And I'm like, wait a minute, that looks like a harness. That guy's on a harness. I'm like, what the heck? And then I realized, oh my gosh, that's a fisheye lens. Are you kidding me? This is what happened to me in 2017. And I realized, like, even Mythbusters and the Red Bull Jump, they're all in on it. They're all part of the club.
Yeah, you can see the fit, like you said, the fisheye lens. Up above, it looks very impressive, and then you see the footage of it actually down on the ground.
Level.
Yeah, at ground level, and you can see that everything is like a bubble. Yep. Yeah, it's kind of funny. Yeah.
Yep. So that's what woke me up. Those two things. If I literally had to choose just two things, it would be showing proof of objects at distances that should be covered by curve, number one. And number two, just showing how much NASA lies constantly, all the time. Those two things are what I think are the biggest ways to wake people up to flat Earth. And then you can say, oh, by the way, this is all in the Bible. And they're like, oh, really? And then that brings people to Christ. So those are the three things that I think are like, the three important truths that we can really share to wake people up.
Yeah.
There's so much more.
Yeah. Speaking of NASA too, I mean, when you really dive into it, it does, when you start to see some of the things, it makes no sense. It almost makes more sense that it's just a giant money laundering operation for the government than anything else.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things I had heard one time was, say the International Space Station. You got this giant space station up there, and somebody had just said, casually, oh, you're never going to find any pictures of the the International Space Station being built, and why would that? And I'm like, wait, I don't know, I've ever seen it, but I don't do this research. But I'm assuming you do. Have you ever researched that? Have you ever seen any pictures of this thing being
Nope.
built and shot
Never.
into space?
Never, never. And the reason why is because they have to film everything in a studio, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Texas, they have these huge, like, you can see, like, it is a mega studio. And it's funny because they'll get random bugs that'll fly in there and they're like, get out.
Yeah.
Like, it's so obvious that they're not in a fake space.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Nowadays, it's almost comical, some of the things. I literally, like I said, I'm just more curious than anything, but I can 100% say with absolute certainty that I believe we never went to the moon. Not with
Exactly.
So
That was my
call me
first
crazy if you want, but there's no way that occurred.
Yeah.
And it's almost laughable now with the technology we have, and you see it, and it's because back then I'm sure it looked amazing, and today we can see all the faults and everything that kind of happened. But it's kind of funny. People still look at me weird when I say that, and I like to say things too just to get a rise out of people. But I do believe that we never went to the moon. I just don't think that occurred. And one of the other things that you had mentioned too earlier. So when you had kind of come to your realization that the Earth is flat, and it was, whoa, you were kind of on an island. It was just you. Your wife wasn't even there yet. All of that, and I've heard you say, and Jesus will show up according to your faith, and for some reason that's how. I'm guessing that's kind of like you were at that time, like you said, a lot of Mormons, former Mormons, ex-Mormons, however you say it. Once they lose that faith, they lose it. They just go off the deep end. They're frat boys,
Yep.
And they're out doing drugs, whatever. They've just lost the religion. So do you believe that Jesus kind of showed up according to your faith at a time that it was right for you to still have belief and have faith without ruining everything that you had lived your life for?
Yes. In fact, that sign that I had, I was starting to question the Book of Mormon secretly. Like, I realized that the Apocrypha, if you've ever read the Apocrypha, it has a lot of stuff that Joseph Smith copied from. There's a name, Nephi, in the Book of Maccabees. And that's a huge name in the Book of Mormon. It's their very first, like, major prophet, that Joseph Smith made up. And so when I saw that word, I'm like, wait a minute, this word is in the Book of Maccabees, and Maccabees takes place in 100 BC, 200 BC, and Nephi was supposed to be 600 BC. That's weird, and so I just started to add to my shelf more. And so when I started to add to my shelf, like, literally Jesus was like, okay, Bret, you're going to unplug from this, and I'm preparing you to take it well by having more faith and testimony of me. And he even gave me this, like, amazing light sign when I was sitting at my table in South Carolina studying the scriptures. All of a sudden, this light comes through the blinds. I have it recorded on my wall, and you can literally see a JC with an arrow pointing at the wall, and it's literally pointing to a picture of him on my wall with JC. Like, he was giving me all of these signs to prepare me for what I was about to go through, because I had no idea that I was a part of a false church at that point. I was kind of getting an inkling, with all these little, signs that, okay, that doesn't add up. I'll just put it on my shelf. And eventually, when you put so many things on your shelf, it just can't take it anymore, and it just cracks,
Yeah.
And so people have argued with me that the Bible's the same way as the Book of Mormon and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, there's like so many Roman authors that wrote about Christ. They have found all these things in the Red Sea or around it, or in the Middle East, that proves the Bible. It has all the flat earth and firmament dome verses that shows where we really live. Like, it's like, this is a book of truth, but people, even truthers, will attack the Bible and basically they're doing this so they can live how they want, just like an ex-Mormon. It's just sad to watch.
Yeah.
So.
And will you say that you've had a lot of people leave the Mormon faith based off of just kind of learning more about the Bible and just on the world and the globe and all? Is that a big piece of anything, or is it? How are you reaching people, like, from the Mormon faith? I guess really is more the question. Is it really just more about Jesus, or is it more about the globe model? Does that really trigger with them and think, wow, like, is that really something that that catches them and pushes them away from the Mormon faith?
No. So
No.
actually, what I've really found is that the flat Earth is what actually saves ex-Mormons from going off the deep end.
Okay.
Because I actually formed a friend group of ex-Mormons like myself on Instagram, and all the ones that didn't fall hard after they found out the truth about Joseph Smith, they were all flat earthers, every single one of them. So that kept them grounded in the Bible. You know, if they didn't have like these amazing spiritual experiences or signs like I had that had, prepared me, that one really prepared them, because I didn't have flat earth for 3 years after I found out the Mormon church wasn't true. But the Lord had prepared me with all those signs, and I had all these amazing spiritual experiences that I knew without a doubt that God and Jesus were there, and that didn't change when I found out about Joseph Smith. But yeah, so to answer your question, flat earth is kind of like the safety net for all these ex-Mormons to not let the Bible go, because they realize where they are. So the main thing that I think cracks people's shelves is the examples of plagiarism that he did, and the Late War is just one book of dozens that he copied from. Like there's Pilgrim's Progress. He copied the city's bountiful and desolation. There's so much from the Bible he copied. There's this book about a pirate named Captain Kidd and the island of Camorra with the Moroni Islands, and he put that into his story about the angel Moroni on the hill Camorra. And so he basically just took all these facts and all these themes and put it into his book. And so I think the plagiarism is like the biggest one. And the other one would have to be all the wives that he took behind Emma's back. Those two are the biggest shelf cracking things that I've seen from other people, because they realize that the foundation of their faith about Joseph Smith is all fake, and it's from a guy that was sleeping behind his wife's back.
Yeah, I've never heard anything about all the plagiarism. That is
the plagiarism
very interesting.
Huge. It's very huge. And then just all the other lies, like he claimed to translate this book called the Book of Abraham, but it wasn't. It was just a Egyptian tomb text, and he made up all this other stuff about Kinderhook plates that were not, that he basically said he translated it, but it was really a guy that made them up. And here, translate this. And so he was like, okay. And so he did. And it was about a guy named Zelf. And it's like, no. So yeah, there's just so many things that crack everybody's shelf in different ways. And so the only way that I feel like I can help them is flat earth, but that's still a very underground topic for people who are just so brainwashed by science, false science, I don't know how else to help them, because they've thrown away the Bible. I knew a Navy captain that found out about all this stuff. It's in this essay called the CES Letter by Jeremy Runnels. And in that whole essay, he lays out how he copied all the lies he did, and it just lays it out. But it also throws away the Bible in one single paragraph and calls God schizophrenic or something stupid. And so basically, I talked to this Navy captain, and I'm like, okay, you found out the truth about Joseph Smith. I've known for the past 6 years. He was finding out in 2021. I already known since 2014. So actually it's been 7 years. And I was like, don't throw away the Bible just because of what happened to you, about finding out that your sons are gay. And so he was like, okay, well, now I'm going to throw away the church, throw everything. After he read that, I tried to get through to him privately. And I'm like, look, you're a captain. You take evidence on a watch, and you look at all of it objectively. That's what a captain does. And we had this heated argument, because I was just a petty officer, second class, and he was in my ward in Silverdale, and we were going at it. And I was like, look, you can't just throw away the Bible because you want to, just because your sons are that way now, you have to do the research like you did with the Book of Mormon. And he just was like, F Jesus, F you, and he blocked me, because I proved to him that the Bible is legit. There's evidence for it, like left and right, from the archaeology and from all the flat earth verses and firmament dome verses, and just the people that wrote about Christ. And it's all right there that are not even like, these people hated Christians and they wrote about Christ. And he was saying, oh, Jesus didn't exist. And he like challenged me before he blocked me, to go put it on the chopping block like the Book of Mormon. I'm like, okay. And I did, and I proved it, that it was a legit book with all these extra authors beyond the Bible. And it just ended badly, where he just blocked me and said, forget it. I don't want you part of my life because you're now a Bible thumper. I'm like, well, I'm going to stick to truth. Like, I'm not just going to throw everything and live how I want. Like, that's not what God wants me to do, Mm-hmm. So anyway, it was just crazy that I knew more than a Navy captain. And that was crazy, because Navy captains are supposed to like be objective without bias. Like, what is a real captain, But you realize that, they're just as brainwashed as every other NPC,
Yep.
So that was a crazy experience to go through. And he went on this podcast called the Mormon Stories Podcast with John Daylin around that time. And John Daylin knows who I am. Like, I have more followers than he does on Instagram, but the Mormon community does not know about me because I'm on the conspiracy side. They have no idea who Bret is, because the conspiracy side, the flat earth side, the Mormons and ex-Mormons don't even have a clue like about those kind of things, because they just go from like left to right, like Democrat to Republican, and they're just brainwashed on both sides, just like them, and you have to try to snap them out of it. Like, look, it's not about what side you're on. It's about being on God's side and the biblical side. Like, that's the only side. It's not about all these different sides, and but they're just both deceived. So I honestly feel like God still has something to show me on how to reach them, because I honestly haven't had very much success. Like, it is like they are just so angry, so hurt. You can't reach these lost sheep. Like, they are just so far gone. And I just think about all these people on the head of Joseph Smith at the Judgment Day, because he deceived millions of people. He is probably like up there in the top 3 false prophets, right? Mm-hmm. Muhammad, him, and then the latter days false prophet that we're about to see with the Antichrist is going to be the biggest one, because he'll get billions of people to get the mark. So those are like the top 3 false prophets, because they just had this amazing way to make up scripture and to make up all these things, and people just follow it, and they don't even think. Like, I've read the Quran cover to cover, and it copies the Bible just like the Book of Mormon, And so it's just sad that I can see this damage from the false prophets, that the 2 biggest ones, and then I can't even imagine the damage from the 3rd one that we're going to see in the Book of Revelation with the Antichrist. So it's just anyway, it just breaks my heart, and I wish I could help these people, but they're beyond reach. It feels like they're basically going to have to die and realize things. So God is real. Like, literally, it is that bad. And here's the other thing. There is a verse in the book of Peter, in 1 Peter. It says that the people that got killed by the flood, it says that they got to hear the gospel from Christ in spirit prison after, about 2,000 years since they had been dead from the flood. And it said that they got to live the gospel in the spirit. This is in 1 Peter 3:19-21, and then 1 Peter 4:6, that basically these spirits could still progress and live the gospel. So it just shows that even though God killed them in the first flood, that he would give them another chance in the spirit in prison,
Well, there you go. Jesus will show up according to their faith. And if that's after death, then maybe that's when.
Yep. And so I just got to hand over these people to Christ because they honestly can't be reached until the next life. It feels like a lot of people just have to go to the next life. It feels like, to be unplugged and to realize things.
Hey, why why were you kicked off Facebook?
So in 2020, I got deleted. I lost my original account after I had had it for 8 years. I had been preaching and sharing flat Earth for about 3 months before I got deleted. I started sharing flat Earth for the first time at the end of May in 2020 on my Facebook. And then within 3 months, on August 28th, I got deleted. And so I think it was probably for that, and it could have been for, sharing stuff against the shots that they were going to do the next year. And then I also had all of these groups that basically talked a lot about Q and about Trump, and I was, exposing that too at the same time. So I honestly feel like I was just too much for Facebook, and they just deleted me.
Well, if it's so crazy, why would they get rid of you?
I know, right?
Yeah,
and that was hard to lose 8 years of Facebook, photos and memories and stuff.
Yeah. Well, man, Bret, we've covered a lot today. I will say, extremely fascinating. And I've never had anybody else on the podcast more than once, but I think there's so many topics that you would be fantastic to talk to. If you're interested, I'd love to have you back at some point. But I do want to be respectful of your time, and I just want to kind of end with something here. So I have a blog, and what I do a lot, I kind of post quotes to my kids, and then I write little things about that, and I'm kind of turning it into a book. But one of the more recent quotes that I wrote from me on my blog, it was always keep your mind open to the possibility that you're wrong. And I think that's really important. Open your mind, hear, other things from other people, different angles, make up your mind. You've given a lot of scripture, things that people can do some research on, a lot of facts, and people can go and explore that on their own. And as long as they keep their mind open to the possibility that they could be wrong today, who knows what happens tomorrow. So your Instagram, is your Instagram the best place for people to maybe go and help open their mind?
Oh, definitely. That's my home base. And then I also have an X and a Facebook and then other platforms, but, just to go along with what you just said, like, we have to be willing to admit we're wrong about anything, because when the whole Charlie Kirk thing happened, I thought it was real 1,000%. And then all this other evidence started to come out, and I realized, oh my gosh, like, they had people there to film the videos. And then I realized that there was this chair that went through a platform, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it was staged. I thought it was the synagogue, of Satan. But then once I realized, oh my gosh, okay, so I had to admit to my followers I was wrong. And that's something that we all have to do, because they're going to keep doing, like, deceptive psyops. And we have to realize that it's going to get more intense, like we were talking about with AI. Like, the amount of deception that we're going to have to be on guard against is just beyond anything in the coming years. So,
and there's a lot to the Charlie Kirk thing too. There's a lot to all of the things that you talk about on your Instagram page. And again, Bret, it's called Bret Flat Earth Bible Jesus, and I'll definitely post this and tag you and everything when it's finally released. Yep. And hey, maybe get you a few more followers, but we'll try to keep you under that $100,000 or 100,000 mark. Just keep you safe.
I'm not trying to gain anybody anymore. I'm just posting truth.
Yeah. Well, man, Bret, this has been a fantastic conversation. Let's stay in touch. I would love to maybe talk more, even if it's offline, just because I'm really fascinated by all the things you post, and I've been following you. So I appreciate everything you've been doing.
Yep. No problem.
All right, man.
It's been fun.
Absolutely. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to my conversation with Bret Johnson. I hope you found it as interesting as I did, and I hope it sparked some curiosity within you to do a little research on your own and see what you come up with. If you want to connect further with Bret, follow him on social media, on Instagram, X, and Facebook, all linked here in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with the Stranger Conversations podcast and be my next guest, visit strangerconversationspodcast.com Pick a date and time on our calendar and we'll connect. If being my next guest isn't for you, but you happen to know somebody who would be a great guest, share the show with them. I'd love to meet them. As always, thank you for listening to the podcast and for supporting my guests and sponsors. I'm Tay Jones, and we'll chat later.